it's not, people don't use us because of what we sell. They use us because they trust us to explain it to them in a way they'll understand, not to cheat them, to make sure that we're looking out for their interest and we're helping them navigate through the process. That is what people go to when they're getting a mortgage. You know, that's the most important thing. And I think that is the part that loan officers in my business, you know, I hire loan officers. This is what I do. I hire talent away from other companies, and I let people go who aren't doing things the way I need them to do them here at my company. And what I see is the sort of that thread that goes through what I do when I speak to loan officers is when they try and sit with a customer and that customer leaves, and the loan officer and the customer have two completely different ideas of how that conversation went. When a loan officer is explaining something to a customer and I'm hearing them, I understand what they're saying, but they're using technical jargon, inside baseball things that, you know, it's like second grade. Remember when we were in second grade and the teacher said, does everybody understand? You know, they would do the trial close in second grade. The teacher would say, does everybody understand this lesson? And everybody would go, and I go, do you have any questions? And everybody goes,
no.
And then
They didn't.
You look at your friend and go, do you have any idea what she's talking about? Nope, not a clue, right? They grow up like that. And they turn into that as adults. And so I hear my loan officers speaking to people, and in my head, as I'm listening at one side of my ear, I say, these people have no idea what he's saying. He's going down the wrong path. He's trying to make himself sound smart, because when those customers leave, that loan officer says, yeah, he says to himself, I'm a smart guy. Those people left had no clue what you were talking to them about.
No, I mean, look at the term DTI, LTV, and these, you know, amortized. It's a language.
Yeah, and explaining things like appraisal gaps to a professional who does this day in and day out, and explaining it to a customer. You know, the apples and space shuttles, they're completely different things.
And that's a good point. I mean, I don't want to knock our realtor referral partners, and I'm one of them. But imagine now we're in a world where everything is above asking. Everything is a waiving mortgage contingency, waiving inspections. We're looking for a problem. And who's to say that anyone who's buying today is ever going to realize equity?
And you have to relate to your customer and explain it to them in a way they understand, right? And so, not to get blue on PlugIntro, but you know, and I won't, but you know, sometimes I just had a recently conversation where I was speaking to somebody, and it was clear that I had to find a different approach to make them understand that, you know, they're an FHA buyer. They're not going to be able to go out and compete with 25 other offers on a house. And so when I saw what I was explaining to them wasn't working, I said, listen, you go, you know, a younger fella, and I said, you go to a bar, and sometimes you can hit on the really good looking girl there, and sometimes you have to hit on her friends that aren't so good looking. In your instance today, you have to go hit on her friends when you're looking for a house. If you go up to a house and there's a line out the door, keep going. You know, you have to find a different house. And that he understood. And it was funny because the realtor came back to me and said, I don't know what you said to them, but now they seem to get it. And I said, well, because, you know, the illustration is we've explained.
It makes sense. Yeah, that's we're in this challenging market, and it really needs. I find that if this was a basketball team of your lawyer, New York, lender, title, and home insurance and home inspector, rarely are everyone on the same page. It would be nice if the client, as the buyer, said, I'm going to a store and I want everyone to work for me. They pick this referral, that referral. It's disjointed. They haven't played together. And now there's, you know, people really even having resentment that they can't, that they are in a situation which is harder than it has to be. That's why teaming up and having a real thread of professionals as resources is so important. And I will tell you before, and it's one of the other reasons I made PlugIntro, because before it's ad hoc, it's anecdotal, it's a text message. Oh, this one's on vacation, or this lawyer is in a closing. Let's move forward. I think there has to be, at this point with things so challenging, look, how do you get an offer accepted? How does a realtor evaluate offers? And I know this in Westchester, that if if I see Joe Latini on an offer sheet and a lawyer that's cool and a home inspector who's not a lunatic versus Quicken Loan, XYZ, a lawyer from Queens, PBA, how bad are the PBA lawyers? Who's going to deal with that?
PBA lawyers are fine right up until the point where you have a problem because they're on retainer and they get paid whether or not your contract goes well or you close or don't close. And so attorneys that get paid when you close are going to be more adaptable to bringing that loan to resolution, bringing that.
Right. Plus, they're the ones who get referred. PBA don't get referred.
Right. And so, to your point, right now, if you're a loan officer like myself, who's been doing this a long time, who has always been engaged with the purchase community over the refinance community, what we sell is, Joe Latini's name on the bottom of a pre-approval is going to go a lot further than somebody's name who you don't know. If there's 10 offers, whose offer are they going to accept, right? Now, if you're a new loan officer, you have to leverage it the other way. So if you're a new loan officer, that's what you have to combat, right? And so I just interviewed a few people at a local credit union here. I won't, divulge which credit union, but a local credit union. And their problem was that their interest rates are very competitive and everything's fine. But the problem is with 10 offers on a house, who's picking the one from the local credit union whose loan officer they don't know? No matter what the rate is to the borrower, what's the difference if nobody is ever picking their offer because the other 10 offers are with loan officers they know and banks they trust? The local unions here sometimes have spent the last 10 years building up a name recognition of not being able to do anything that's not vanilla. Well, when you're in a world where nothing is vanilla, why would you've built that name recognition? As I said to a prior employer once, they said, well, we have a lot of name recognition. And my answer to that when I was leaving, and they had said that to try and get me to stay, and my answer to that was, well, Hitler had a lot of name recognition, but it wasn't very good, and so name recognition works both ways, right? It works if you're known as a trusted advisor, someone who's going to get something done, but it works against you sometimes, depending on the lender you're with. It can work against you because you've built a reputation for not being able to do loans that are more difficult.
Sure. Or a big box store like Wells Fargo or Chase. Those are, you're not going to deal with an 800 number at 5 o'clock in St. Louis. But, think about real estate in our area. It's probably the only localized, nuanced, unique relation. What we do here is different than Albany. What you do by you is different than Midtown Manhattan. So what other thing? You buy a car, it's a car. You buy a computer, it's Amazon. This is a world where the players change once in a while, 5 or 10 years, the people out of the business. And, you just use the word choose or select. Think about how crazy it is. Someone has the ability to buy. They are really capable, great buyer, have an interest in being a part of the community, and someone who they'll never talk to decides they can't have the house on behalf of, that's the seller. The seller has the right to reject an offer. It is so nuanced and it is so, dispassionate. It's actually a crazy situation.
But again, Scott, it's about confidence in what you're building up in the person you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with a realtor, that you as a buyer, remember, you're ignorant to the process. You just want to buy a home. One of the things that really makes me, shake my head sometimes, especially on social media, and I see this as a recurring theme, is realtors who will say this phrase, right? Oh, there's no loyalty among buyers. Well, why would you think there is? Why do you think the buyer, or the seller for that matter, owes you any loyalty if you're not providing the service in a manner in which they need it? Their loyalty. You got to understand where their loyalty is. Their loyalty is to the product that they're purchasing and to their own future. And if they see value elsewhere, that is where they're going to go. So you have to ask yourself, what's the value? What's my value as a realtor? And if you're listing a house, your number one value as a realtor is not bringing buyers, not in this environment where I could go to the exit 63 on the Long Island Expressway with a sign that says selling my house and I'll get 10 people saying, just show me where it is and I'll make an offer. Your value is not that as a realtor. Your value to the listing, to the homeowner that's selling their house is, am I picking the right offer? And that's not always the highest price, because the highest price offer could be contingent on whether or not the house appraises, whether or not the bank says it's good. Maybe the bank they're going to is known for chopping your legs out at the last minute. Maybe it's a problem with COs. Maybe it's a problem with the attorney. Maybe it's a host of problems that homeowner has no idea exist.
Right, and then another, there's always a cloud. There's one issue that no one talks about. If a buyer has to sell their home, I have never seen anyone get anywhere into that domino effect. If Mr. Smith is buying Mr. Jones' house, Mr. Smith is selling, does anyone ever get involved with that sale? I forgot the name. It's the buyer of this property. How's your sale going? Is it way overpriced? Do you have a buyer? I mean, that is a beautiful art that no one ever enters into. They feel like it's not their place. And what all it takes is one negative response. Hey, can I know, let's say I'm the listing agent and buyer saying, can I know more about the sale? Oh, no, we're not, if they're not forthcoming, how could you have any faith in this buyer?
Scott, you ever know, and that's why industry, those of us that have been around a while, we all sort of know one another, right? So I always tell people, if you go down the road, do you ever notice how all the gas stations in one town seem to be the same price? But in the next town they're a little different, but never in the same town or never in the same street, because we all sort of talk to one another. We don't price fix, but we all sort of talk to one another. The customers, the buyers, the sellers, those people come and go. But the realtors, the attorneys, the loan officers, we all know one another, and we're going to be dealing with each other on the next deal, and the next deal, and the next deal. So when someone's buying this house and that person's deal is contingent on them buying something else, as you point out, well, who's the person on that transaction? Oh, it's so-and-so. Hey, let me give them a call. Is everything okay on this? Yes, it is. Or no, there's a little problem, but we're going to get through it. Or can I help? We all sort of talk to one another. And when we see that person is someone who has done something wrong in the past, we have a memory for that, right? So if those people have done something wrong in the past, that's going to haunt you throughout your career. And that's why it's so important that not only are you good at what you do, but the name on the back of your jersey, which is your name, is equally as important as the name on the front of your jersey, the team you play for. You could be the greatest loan officer in the world at Countrywide, and I'm using Countrywide because they're no longer here. But if Countrywide is known as people who aren't going to get it done, then what good is how good your name on the back of your jersey is, and vice versa. You could have a company that you work for, fantastic, but you are known as somebody that can't get it done. And so it's important that both of those names are well respected and to make that transaction go through. If you do that, more of your transactions will close as a realtor. So if you make sure that the attorney, the lender, is respected on either side of that transaction, you are ultimately going to sell more houses, close more deals, and make more money.
Right. Listen, I agree completely. And that's why affiliation is so important. And I think that affiliation cannot be based on boasting or bragging or, like you see on social media, misplaced post of, I got a listing. Well, great. I live in Westchester County. I can't help you in West Islip. So you should be sending that to the people you know in West Islip, or worse, in Minnesota or Vegas. So people are ignoring. I see in all these Facebook groups, and the reason why I pick on Facebook and social media is because PlugIntro is what I call local business media. It's your own local business media channel. It's yours to put out content. And someone asked me today, what kind of content? I said, we're not entertainers with good books, good songs, good movies. We're not here to please you. I want to give you, Joe, the chance to let us know why you're the professional of choice. And this social media has become such an obsession. It's a real sad story when I always say, what would people do if Zuckerberg didn't make a college yearbook? What would happen? What would we be doing? Advertising?
Right.
I mean, it's amazing how an industry just took to this thing, which makes sense, but you really are talking about yourself and you're not giving anything to anyone. And that's really why we're here.
It's easy to look back at something and say, this was a good idea, this was not such a good idea. I was speaking with some title people recently who were telling me that, loan officers should go onto TikTok and make these 10-second videos.
Oh,
And I don't see the value in it other than making, a fool of yourself. Because I think sort of 10-second answers are kind of the problem that we encounter in this business. The truth is there are no 10-second answers. So how do you in 10 seconds encapsulate you're the person to go to?
I guess the only way you could in that case is shaking the hands, congratulating a buyer to get some top of mind local awareness. That's all you could do, create a tiny impression. But I did see an agent who was, tragically clueless, and she asked, and I'm not sure if it was serious, what dance to do, what teenage kid dance to do to get attention. And I'm thinking, this is a travesty. This is where we are with so much. I said to clients, I've said this all these years. This transaction is a complicated legal and financially sophisticated transaction. Look at what you know. Look what lawyers know. Look what the title company. Everyone is so deep, and even all the agency disclosure is based on New York State law. Whatever form you have a client fill out, there's a page in a New York State law that corresponds to that. So we all have to treat this as a really important thing to do.
Yeah, look, I think we've had this conversation prior, and if you and I haven't, and certainly I have in the past, which is, think about the mechanic who was a really good mechanic and then opened up a mechanic shop and then failed miserably. You have to ask yourself why. And the answer to that was just because a guy is a good mechanic, the same skill set doesn't translate to owning a business, to owning a mechanic shop. Owning a successful blimpie store has nothing to do with making a good sandwich. It has to do with financial transactions. It has to do with the cost of ordering, the cost of food, the cost of your rent, managing your personnel properly, right? It's a whole host of things that has nothing to do with a sandwich. Well, the same thing applies in what we do. You want to talk about a tragic example of what we do in our business? How many loan officers do you see that are outstanding loan officers, and what do guys like I do? Guys like me will take that really good loan officer and make him a branch manager of one of my branches. And that is a tragic mistake, because being a good loan officer doesn't equate well. It's not the same skill set as managing a branch of loan officers. So in our business, the realtors do the same thing, right? You have to find what you're good at. Now, there are some people who are good at both, right? They have the skill set to be good at what they do and the skill set to manage properly. But most people have one skill set or the other, not both. How does that translate to marketing? If you don't have somebody teaching a good realtor how to market in social media the way you do at PlugIntro, then how do you expect them to know that? So somebody who's really good at their job becomes awkward and awful when they try and do their own marketing on social media. That's why it's important. A good leader knows how to delegate, right? And to delegate some of those things and say, listen, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to delegate it to somebody and listen to that advice because they do know how to do it.
Yeah, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
Steve Jobs, right? People say Steve Jobs wasn't a great engineer, wasn't a great developer. What is it exactly that he did? He understood everybody else's job, and he understood how to bring it together. He knew how to delegate this job to the right person, not that he knew that job better than everyone else. So I think realtors and loan officers alike it would benefit them to understand what they're good at and not good at. And sometimes, frankly, Scott, social media marketing is not what they're good at.
No, it is no barrier to entry. It's free. It's easy. And, you wake up in the morning and there's a plethora, a never-ending thread. There's a fable about Steve Jobs, who he took an iPhone 4 threw it in a fish tank, and there was bubbles. And he said, why are there bubbles? Why bubbles? Why do we have bubbles? Why is there air in this? Why don't we? That means we have too much space here. So he had these exacting standards, yet he didn't design it, but he was the real pain in the ass that demanded things get better.
Yeah, and so I think, just to cross it over into what the realtors are doing, how can the realtors sell more houses and do that? It's not about having the answer to every question. How many realtors do you see? I used to date a girl, and I used to say she would know a little bit about a situation and fill in the rest with her imagination when I was a kid. And I always remembered that through adulthood, because I see realtors who do the same thing. They know a little bit about something and they fill in the rest with their imagination. And you're not expected as a realtor or a loan officer or a manager or anybody else, you're not expected to know all things. You're not expected to know the answer to all things. You're expected to be able to say, I trust in this person that what they say is going to be good for this, or let's find out about that. I just, you don't have to have that answer for everything. And too many times I see real estate agents that'll go on, be asked a question on social media and answer something. Like, one of the things I tell my loan officers, you may be able to fool your neighbor into thinking you're a physicist, but you're never going to fool a physicist into thinking you're a physicist, right? So it's the same thing on social media. You may say something, that 10-second platitude, that makes you look good to the average schlub. But everyone who knows what you're talking about knows you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And so you have to learn how to navigate through that. So
right. And that includes practices. I see two things that are making me crazy with agents, with lenders doing every day. They share someone's listing, which takes a lot of courage and effort. You press share. And they also make a comment and ask to be part of a transaction. I got a listing, home inspector, I'd like to be, or congratulate someone like mad. You're on the sidelines. You're basically talking to someone after the game is on or it's over. Why wouldn't you take control in this case? And the reason why they don't is they never had a place of their own to bring people in. They never had a backyard like PlugIntro to invite agents into the barbecue. But now we do. And that's people have been just joiners and events and LIBOR and pink tie. And don't get me wrong, I love that stuff more than anything. I was losing it during COVID, couldn't give a hug and making it weird with people. But you can't do that pink tie is not every day.
No.
And it's a good thing that it's not. So you need something, a systematic.
Pink tie is the prom for the mortgage industry, and that's well and good to go to the prom, but a career in your school it does not make. So, that's not the stuff that matters. I think people think the wrong things matter, frankly. If you make a certain commission or a certain amount more in commission, what's the difference how much you make as a percentage if you're not doing any volume? What's the difference how low your interest rate is if nobody borrows your money? What's the difference how good you are at what you do if you get 2 listings a year? So, I just think people do the wrong things because they find the wrong things important. Being busy does not mean you're working. Every one of us knows that guy who does 300 emails a day. Answering emails is not your job. It's what you do in the middle of your job, right? It's what you do in between your job. Otherwise, there would be a job description here at Caliber Home Loans that said answer emails. There's not. So it's about doing what you do efficiently. And frankly, some of that's on you, Scott, and some of it's on me because I have to manage my process flow. One of the most important things I do for my loan officers and my underwriters and my processors and closers and everybody else is manage the process flow for them. Make it more efficient. Make their job matter more. Do less of the tasks that don't make you any money. My advice is this: if you're a real estate agent, plot out what you do every day. And take the things that are making you money and do more of them. and take the things that aren't making you money and do less of that. And if you can do that, you're going to make more money. Just the fact that you're on social media all day for an hour every morning does not mean you're working. Just the fact that you go to your office and talk to people about what was on TV last night doesn't mean you're working just because you happen to be there.
Mm-hmm.
The hours you do and what you do with those hours.
Right. And, I've had this social media metric because I've been on this for a long time. How much realtors social media training? Okay. Whatever is said, I would love to know, and I want to see, A, that they've implemented the advice. B, I want to see the CD and the resulting commission check from the application of that information. What percentage would that be?
Not large.
I mean, borderline none. It's first the implementation and then the success of that implementation. But yet, the Caliber could fill a building in June with that training.
Well, because I used to call it gimmick of the week. Somebody would come in, we have to do, and I would write it up on the whiteboard, and I would invite everybody in to look at this and go, okay, pitch it to them. Pitch it to everyone who works for me in 30 seconds, a minute and a half, why this thing is revolutionary and why I'm not going to be talking about the next gimmick 3 months from now. And of course, 99% of the time, those things get torn to shreds. Because people want to find a way to augment the work that they're doing and replace the work. Nothing replaces the work. You have to do the work. You have to do the job. There's nothing that you're going to do that's going to replace that. No matter how good your dance on TikTok is, ultimately you have to do the work. And frankly, when I see that, I see someone who has way too much time on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see somebody who's doing a giant video of I had a closing and making a giant deal of their closing, the first thing that comes to my mind when a loan officer or a real estate agent puts I had a closing and all the people at the closing and the pictures and the handshaking, the first thing that comes to my mind is how many times have I seen this from this realtor in the past? The answer is usually, I don't remember seeing this for a long time. So whether it's true or not, the conclusion I draw subconsciously is this person doesn't have a lot of closing.
Right. It's, in the NFL, act like you've been there. Don't go the spiking the ball. Barry Sanders, what did he do? Gave the ball to the ref. This is what I do. Here's the ball, ref.
Right. And so I think people just maybe have to see the forest from the trees. They have to, not everyone flies at 50,000 feet to see the whole picture, and I get that. But what you think is important as a realtor or a loan officer is not very important most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, we did a great job here today. You really gave compelling information to your agent referral partners and probably your loan officers of how you know this industry and what we can better provide to our colleagues and referral partners. How do we get in touch with you? And let me know what's the best email and phone number.
We just criticized social media for a half hour, and I'm going to say the best way to get me is, you can always catch me on social media if you like. So I will put that in there. The best way to get me, though, is always through phone or email. Pick up the phone. You can dial my phone numbers are out there. JosephLatini.com is how you get to my website. Joseph.Latini at CaliberHomeLoans.com is the best way to email me. You can always call me at 516-318-6500. And if you're a loan officer and you want to ask me questions about how we do things here, I always take those phone calls. That's a bulk of what I do. If you're a realtor partner and you want to be able to figure out how to increase your business, sell more houses, make a little bit more money this year, or just change the way you're doing things, that's what I'm here to do. One of the things I want to leave you guys with is I don't mind at all when a realtor refers 2 or 3 lenders. As a matter of fact, I kind of like it because it gives the borrower the ability to see how I'm different from other people.